They call him the Hawk for the power of his build and the laser-like focus in his eyes and mind. But before that, he was an Eagle, a Southwest Miami Senior High School Eagle, soaring high above Florida ball fields, diving for pop flies, breaking records, and inspiring fans, teammates, and opponents, all in his flight toward a future as one of baseball's greatest players ever. A bird's gotta fly, and since his fledgling days, Andre Dawson just had to fly, with every bit of him, heart and head, muscle and hustle, body and soul. Born in Miami on July 10, 1954, the eldest of 8 children, he played his first Little League game in 1963, even then showing exceptional athleticism from the start. His determination showed early, too, at J.R.E. Lee Elementary. There, a young Andre was pushed harder and higher by Alice Daniels, a remarkable teacher who also happened to be his aunt. "I know she expected more from me," he wrote. "She was an exceptional disciplinarian, and I thank her for that." A gifted all-around athlete, the Hawks studied and played hard at South Miami Junior High, then at Southwest, where he played football before taking a bad hit to the knee, requiring surgery, the first of many that would test him throughout his career. Later, the Hawk narrowed his focus to baseball, and in fact, he made the team at Florida A&M, FAMU. Then, 1975 and the big leagues. Andre drafted in the 11th round by the Montreal Expos. A year in the minors in Alberta, Canada, and then a call up to the show. And a stellar first season in the majors it was. Fielding mostly in center field, the Hawk batted .282 with 19 home runs. He drove in 65 runs, and get this, he even stole 21 bases. All told, 148 hits and 64 runs, and in 1977, honors as the National League Rookie of the Year, the first for a player on a last-place team. 11 years in Montreal fueled the Hawks' determination to prove he was one of the game's best all-around players ever. His running and hitting, fielding and throwing consistently among the game's best in every category. But knee problems plagued him, made worse by that awful turf at Olympic Stadium. Then a shift to right field and a move to grass at Wrigley Field, and a fresh start with the Chicago Cubs. In 21 Major League seasons, later in Boston with the Red Sox, and in Miami with the Marlins, Andre Dawson would fly higher time and time again, breaking a slew of records and snagging a ton of honors in the process. 8-time All-Star, 8 Gold Gloves, National League Most Valuable Player in 1987, and in 2010, a call from Cooperstown and a spot in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. As a boy in Miami, he looked up to Hank Aaron and Willie Mays, the greats, and now he's back as one of them and as one of us in the front office of the Miami Marlins. The mighty Hawk, forever an Eagle, forever soaring, gliding and sliding his way to home.
Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of Fire, Black Press USA's live stream. And you saw the intro. Check this out. 438 career home runs, 279 career batting average, 2,774 hits, 1,591 RBIs, and just to throw this in, 314 stolen bases. He is certainly one of the top 5 players I've ever seen take the field. None other than Andre Dawson, the Hawk. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you very much.
Andre, we're going to talk about a few things this afternoon, especially about the participation of Blacks in baseball and what you're doing and what Major League Baseball is doing. But I want to start with that great career because I grew up watching you. And I kind of grew up at the end of Willie Mays and Hank Aaron's career, but only one other player I saw in my lifetime down to this day that compares to Andre Dawson in my book, and that's Barry Bonds. Andre, 12 knee surgeries. How'd you do it?
Well, Barry Bonds, okay, that's some pretty good company there. Thank you very much. Well, I tell you, it started initially as a result of a high school football injury, and I didn't do any post-surgery therapy or rehab, and I never really regained the strength or the mobility back in the knee itself. And as a result, favoring it and playing on it all those years. I had a 20-plus year playing career, but the wear and tear would accumulate over the years, and periodically I would have to go in and get it cleaned out and checked up, and it just started to take its toll playing on the AstroTurf.
Yeah.
And I could never, I don't know how I was able to pull it off. It was a lot of tough times, I would say. But I never really threw in the towel. I bit the bullet. I just said, I was blessed with a talent, with an ability to play a sport that millions of kids want to do throughout some point in their lifetime. But I was doing it as an adult and getting paid to do it. So I might as well try to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And I just took that approach, that attitude every day that, your career could end at any moment. So enjoy it for what it is. And when it was all said and done, I just had 12 knee surgeries under my belt. But like I said, I realized the damage was done early on. It was how I would react to the damage, and that was trying to make my work ethic impeccable and just get the most out of my blessing, my ability. And I didn't really look back. It was a painful career, but an enjoyable one, because I just took a different approach and an attitude about work ethic and going forward.
Yeah, there was no real way to pitch Andre Dawson. It was just amazing. There's only a few players you can think of who just really had almost no holes in their swing. You played, most people remember, when they think about, I should say, the Montreal Expos, a lot of times they think about a woebegone franchise who, was always at a second division team. However, many tend to overlook that early 80s Montreal Expos, yourself, Tim Wallach, Tim Raines, Andre Thornton, Gary Carter, of course, and such talent. What was it like to be surrounded by such talent, and how did that actually help you? Because I know that when pitchers face batters, they always looking a batter ahead or a couple of batters ahead, and if you got somebody like Andre Dawson batting behind you, chances are you're going to see some good pitches.
Well, their scouting department did a very good job in talent evaluating and drafting. And for the most part, all of those players that you have mentioned came up through the minor league system. And it was a situation where we were very fortunate to all be very young and in the major leagues playing at that level at the same time. And we were probably about a good quality 2 or 3 players that could be game changers away from being in postseason play on any particular given year or on a consistent basis anyway. But it was very, very tough to want to get that kind of player to come across the border. So we just churned it out. We realized we were talented, we were gifted, but we'd always come up short. There were teams like the Pirates who had that wrecking crew, Starger Parker,
absolutely,
Dave Cash, Al Oliver, those guys, and they were tough to beat. Then there were the Phillies who were tough to beat. We'd always just seem to come up short. And as tough as it was to play across the border, playing in a different culture, different country, we made the adjustment. But those teams had a little bit of an edge on us, and we just couldn't quite cross that hurdle when, we were confronted with it. We finished a close second. We did win one particular year, but we lost in the championship series to the Dodgers. But it was amazing to be able to have that kind of talent around you, and it made the game that much more enjoyable and fun to go out and play.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Pirates of Willie Stargell and Dave Parker and those guys, and the Phillies, Mike Schmidt, Lazinski and company. but there was also Whitey Herzog's Cardinals. So there was a lot of talent throughout the league, and there were some really, really good teams. And unlike today, when you have 3 divisions and the wild card, it was only the 2 division winners. So it was really tough to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, especially when you got a few good teams trying to do the same thing every year. I failed to mention the Dodgers out on the West Coast. That was another hurdle to cross. But yeah, unlike today, back then it was a little bit more difficult of a task to try and pull off because of the quality of talent in both divisions.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, and we're talking with Andre Dawson, the great Andre Dawson, Baseball Hall of Famer, Montreal Expos, Chicago Cubs, and I guess you finished with the Marlins. But you talked about the 21. I guess it was 21 knee surgeries or something like that, or multiple knee surgeries. Today, people complain that athletes today don't endure much like you guys back then. Is that a fair assessment, or is that a little unfair?
Well, I do think that because of the economics, how so much money is being passed around, players are being paid today. The agents sort of enter the picture, and they take control. And then management is taking the liberty of protecting their investments. So they won't be apprehensive to shut you down. I'll put you on the disabled list.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe 25 years or so ago. But that's all understandable because it's a business now, and you do want to take care of your investment.
Yeah. And Andre, so this year, the season started, of course, late, the pandemic. So they expanded rosters. They opened up, instead of 25-man rosters, it was 30-man rosters. So you had about 900 players. But here's the thing, just 7.7% were African Americans. Very, very low number, especially considering just a few years ago, that number was probably double. What's going on with that? And I know you are working hard to try, along with Major League Baseball, to try and change that.
Well, I think to a degree it's a lost commodity. First of all, in the urban communities, I don't foresee with the way the game is played today. That is with the expenses that are involved. It's a very, very tough sell to go out and spend $100 on a glove and another $50, $75 on a bat. And a lot of families just can't afford that. And then the fact that there's so much travel ball now and showcases, that gets to be very expensive. But as I said, the sport is being not downplayed, but kids are taking more to basketball and football. Those are the stars that they kind of clamor to, the LeBron Jameses, Kobe's when he was alive, Steph Curry's now, Kevin Durant's. Those players kind of stand out in the minds of the urban youth. And then there's football, where they see a lot of faces. The dads are probably pushing the kids more to play the game of football. And, well, that leaves baseball with the shorter hand. And I think, once we figure out exactly how do we approach getting the sport itself back to the forefront in the urban communities, that's an issue that, we'll have to tackle with and address. But I think with all of the initiatives that Major League Baseball is implementing now, and all of the different academies, all of the different things that are being available to the Black youth and the young adult Blacks, we're going to see a trend that's going to probably go back in a positive direction. But it can't come soon enough.
And you mentioned too the expense. of playing baseball for young ones and their families. Like you said, $100 for this, or $50 for that, cleats, everything, right? Whereas a basketball, all you need is a basketball. You can make your own hoop pretty much. We used to do that when I was a kid, but you are doing something to change it. I understand that there are several initiatives that Major League Baseball has instituted over the last several years, and they've really made a push to try and change the narrative on that. There's the Andre Dawson Classic. There's the Hank Aaron Invitational. Can you talk a little bit about both? First, the Andre Dawson Classic, and how does that spur interest from young African Americans?
Well, the Andre Dawson Classic itself is a round robin tournament that is designed to showcase historically Black colleges and universities as viable collegiate baseball options. And the event started back in 2008 as the Urban Invitational. In 2018, I was approached by Major League Baseball with an opportunity to change the name to the Andre Dawson Classic, and I welcomed it. For me, it was a no-brainer. And by my attending an HBCU, I think myself, along with the late legendary Lou Brock, I took it as is, I'm welcomed and thankful that this opportunity is going to present itself. There are other initiatives that I have personally taken a hands-on approach with. You mentioned the Hank Aaron Invitational, and that's pretty much a thing that is mirroring Major League Baseball spring training. And what it does is it focuses on developing the young players both on and off the field. And to this date, I think about 94% of all the alumni that pretty much graduates from high school, they either get to go on and play in the college or play at the professional level. And for me, it's an opportunity to get back around the youth, to get back around the young adults, and to see them showcase their talents and get the recognition that they so strongly deserve. A lot of them don't have the opportunity to go to a Division I school, but if you can continue to pursue your career at an HBCU with an opportunity to play at that level, then you're going to get recognition, and hopefully you're talented enough to be given another opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andre, what do you think if there were more African-American managers, more African-American general managers, would that help to recruit younger African-Americans to the sport?
Well, to date, we have presently 2 African-American managers, 2 that are doing a pretty good job. Dusty Baker sat out for a few years for whatever reason. I think, here's an individual that should have not really have to lose his job and not have another job waiting in the wings because of the success ratio that he has had. And we see what Dave Roberts has done out in Los Angeles. But I think that's a trend that also needs to be addressed. We need to have a few more. There are a lot of candidates in my mind that probably could go out and do a pretty good job if they're given the opportunity. Yeah. And as far as management, upper management positions, yeah, there are some cases to be debated, but I think the true picture is getting the kids out of college and having them to have the opportunity to play. A lot of players who are 2-3 sport athletes in college, they may go the route of selecting to play baseball because of a certainty or guarantee with the finances. And I just think that it's something that, we just need to get a stronghold on and really, really push the envelope when it comes to having sincere attitudes about taking the sport seriously and knowing what can be the ramifications. But like you said, maybe 20 years ago, when the percentage rate was about 17% of African Americans in baseball, as opposed to less than 8% now, that's a dwindling number that we got to really address and get it right in the right direction.
Yeah, and just to add on to your managerial candidates, Willie Randolph did a tremendous job with the New York Mets, but he was one and done. And he has still expressed interest in getting back into the game. It just seems kind of odd that someone of with his cachet hasn't been able to land another opportunity. What about yourself? Have you thought about coaching, managing? Is that something that you've ever considered?
You know, I'm too old school. It was
analytics, right?
You got it. It was brought to my attention just after I retired, and I felt after a 20-year career, I really wanted to get it out of my system. I wanted to get away from the game and be around my kids, watch them grow up. And when I say I'm old school, I know that, you know, because of the money that's tossed around in the game itself, certain players have to play. Well, my number one priority would be winning, okay, and fulfilling the best lineup that's going to get me in the position to win. And I can't get caught up into the ball club being managed from upstairs.
Right.
I think that's done a lot today. And as you mentioned, analytics is a huge portion of the game. So that in itself adds to the game being brought from downstairs into the managerial's office or the manager's office, and as a result, dictating what the lineup is going to be. And then there's 25 egos that you have to appease, and that can be very difficult. You got to get everyone to be on the same page, to buy into what it is you're trying to instill. And for me, I said, old school again, because I would be stern, I would be direct, and I would be demanding. And I don't think that's the way you can approach the game today from the managerial standpoint.
Yeah. And going back to trying to attract more young African Americans into the sport, you mentioned something that is, I think, is a big obstacle. With football and basketball, you leave either high school or college and go right to the pros, and the money is there. In fact, I think the NBA now, a first round draft pick is guaranteed in his first year, something like $4 to $5 million. And baseball, there's the minor league system. You might have to labor there for 6 years or so. Especially given the fact that they're looking at service time as well. They don't want you to be a free agent too soon. So there's a lot of nuances there that I'm sure if they could figure out a way to fix that, it seems like that would also help. What's your take?
Yeah, you see, the incentives are so much of a given when it comes to deciding which direction you want to go when you're young. And like you said, all of the above makes you lean more toward the other sport. Yeah, I think that if you can, and that's difficult to do, changing the system the way it is now, because it takes a lot of development to get to the big leagues, and the turnover is every couple of years. You're having players drafted, and you're having players maybe with 2 or 3 years of professional under their belt, professional play under their belt, being released because you got to turn these players over. Mm-hmm. And they'll know initially pretty much your ability will dictate how far you're going to go in an organization. And hopefully, if you don't make it, you get picked up by somebody else. But like you say, I think the thing is, if you can find a way to shorten the span of getting to the big leagues, It's going to require a lot of talent, a lot of ability, and you're just going to have to stand out head above heels with your competition in order for that to happen.
Yeah, and there are exceptions, right? Juan Soto out in Washington and Acuna, Ronald Acuna in Atlanta. There's a couple of exceptions there. These kids, they're 21, 22 years old, and they're both MVP candidates. And we saw what Juan Soto did last year in leading the Nationals to the World Series title. So it is, in that sense, possible. I want to ask you, too, you've mentioned old school a couple of times, and I like to think I'm old school when it comes to baseball, too. There's a lot of talk about length of games. One thing that I never hear anyone talk about, Andre, and I want to see if you picked up on this, but when you played, if a ball hit the ground, pitch thrown, swing and a miss, hits the ground, the batter or maybe the pitcher would ask the umpire to check the ball, but they didn't throw it out. Today, they automatically throw that ball out and get another ball. Now, people might say that might not take a lot of time. It does take time, and it does happen a lot during a 9-inning game.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Those balls are being thrown out, and they have a guy over there that's putting a sticker on them. They're being sold. A lot of things have changed about the game, and I think it's been tinkered with to the extent where you shake your head and you say, "Come on, what's next?" Yeah. But I look at it's just a trend. It's just how different the game is played today. There are pitchers back in the past who would have wanted that baseball because it's scuffed up, and they could throw it. And if they knew how to throw it, if they've practiced it,
the Negro brothers,
baseball, the ball has movement. Now you have the pitchers today. No, they don't want that ball. So that's kind of the irony of it and the difference that I see today. And as you mentioned now with extra innings and what we have instituted as a result of the shortened season this year, I don't like it.
That runner on second starting the extra innings.
No, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that managers are saying, well, it changes the game because you don't wear your bullpen out. Well, just stretch your guys out a little bit more. The game is designed now to get the pitcher, the starting pitcher, to the 5th or 6th inning, and then you got 3 different arms that you're going to throw out there for innings 7, 8, and 9. So I just stretch these guys out a little bit more. Don't tinker with the history of the game. They're trying to find ways to shorten games. It's just the impact that I guess it has overall on finishing games. But I just think that every year you find a way to tinker with the game, and to me, it's just tampering with the history of the game.
Yeah, Seaver versus Gibson. Matchups, Don Gullick and Tommy John. Those guys, they pitched. Steve Carlton, hour and 50 minutes, hour and a half. 2-hour games were almost unheard of at one point. Now it's 3.5 hours, 4 hours. I want to ask you, too. There's a couple of things I want to ask you. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I grew up a Met fan. You had success against Doc Gooden. And I want to know how that happened, especially from that 84 to 87, 86 period when he was just almost untouchable.
I'll tell you what, you say I had success. I don't know how much success I had because the Doc was the truth, all right? And I can recall a game in Shea Stadium where Doc threw 95 plus, upper 90s. And he threw a high fastball, and I was notorious for swinging at the high fastball. I could get on top of that pitch. And I remember hitting a home run off of him out near the Apple. And he looked at me and he shook his head. And I can recall making a quote in the following day's paper. He still won the game, But he said, I made a mistake to Dawson. I don't know how he tomahawked that high fastball. He'll never see that again. Sure enough, from that point on, he would hook me to death. And he was kind of notorious for tipping his pitches. And that kind of gave me a little bit of an edge. But no, Doc was the truth. And I tell you what, if he was on, if he had that breaking ball in the strike zone, he was as tough as they come.
Well, they call it Lord Charles.
Yes, and I saw him, and my initial response was, "Man, this guy's destined for the Hall."
Yeah. It's a shame what eventually happened, but it's good to see Doc looking healthy today. He said he was throwing in the upper 90s, and again, that's a different aspect of the game today. While we knew about the radar gun, every pitch is on the gun now. Everyone is talking about velocity, and we see more and more pitchers getting Tommy John surgery. When you guys played, that was really something that was almost unheard of. I mean, Tommy John himself had the surgery, which led to it being named or coined the Tommy John surgery, but it didn't happen to the Steve Carltons of the world and the Don Suttons of the world. And even Doc Gooden. I don't think Doc Gooden ever had Tommy John's surgery.
No, well, the emphasis a lot today is put on Mike's effort. Like I said, getting the most out of your starting pitching to see how far they can go in a ball game, and then turn it over to your bullpen. And that's also the case with your bullpen. A lot of times the guys will come in and their job is to either pitch to a specific hitter, get a guy out, or get through one inning, and then you turn it over to a different reliever. So that's in itself a reason why you may have a lot of injuries that would occur to your pitching staff, because these guys are being drafted that throw in the mid to upper 90s, and they're asked to do one thing. And Tommy John is a surgery that will not end your career in a sense, but some guys can come back as a result of a little bit strong as a result of it. So I don't think they really fear that as much as maybe they would have in the past. In the past, you had a lot of quality pitchers that would stretch themselves out. They knew how to get into the later innings. And the expectations from the manager or managerial staff was that we know this guy's going to get us probably to this point in the game, and then we could turn the ball over, turn the game over to the bullpen, and that's when your real managing starts.
Yeah, and real quick before we let you go, Andre Dawson, when you think about the players today, is there a pitcher and a everyday player that reminds you of when you played? Is a throwback, you'd say?
Oh, wow. When I played, a player that today I'm reminded of, I try not to even think along those lines, but I just like, good play. I like players that go out, give it their max effort day in and day out, who are not just designed to swing the bat, who can help you defensively on the base paths, who can make the plays defensively, who can hit for average also.
You're describing Andre Dawson.
I won't go as far as saying there's someone that reminds me of myself. But there are players that I really, really enjoy watching. If I had to think of an individual, it would probably be someone along the lines of a Mookie Betts.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Trout. He's just a different kind of an animal. And, you've seen that for a number of years now.
Yeah.
But I would say an individual that would remind me of myself would be a Mookie Betts, because he simply does it all, and I enjoy watching his game, and he's a ticket that I wouldn't hesitate to purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we close, Andre, we want to just quickly pivot back to close with the fact that Major League Baseball is working to try and attract more African Americans, and Andre is pretty much at the forefront of that effort. What about corporate endorsements and other financial opportunities for players to make money off the field? Is that a draw?
Is that a draw for me personally?
Well, no, for young ones today. Could that be a draw for young African Americans today? The fact that there is corporate opportunities and off the field opportunities now.
Well, another direction you may want to keep in mind is having African Americans be endorsed a little bit more, especially at that level. That would draw perhaps some interest, and I think to a degree it would draw a lot of interest. But yeah, there should be, as opposed to your regular income, there should be a lot of financial opportunities away from the field, and I see it a lot with football. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that young stud out in Kansas City, and
oh my,
and then this young stud in Baltimore.
Baltimore, yep.
You know, they're taking it and they're running with it. So I do feel that there are opportunities away from the field. You know, if you got the right people doing the right things for you, those opportunities will present themselves.
And let's not leave out the young stud, as you say, in Seattle, Russell Wilson. I mean, we can't leave him out of there.
Well, no. Well, Russell has already, you know, he's been doing it for a number of years. Yeah. Like these two younger guys who are just starting to get it, Russell has already gotten his and continues to get it.
Absolutely. Listen, I can talk sports with the great Andre Dawson. I can talk baseball for sure. This is such a privilege we have to have Hall of Famer Andre Dawson. We are so fortunate to have had this time with you. Keep up the great work, and listen, keep instilling into these young kids baseball, man. I love baseball, and also in your seat, hopefully you can talk to the higher ups in baseball and tell them stop changing our precious game, Andre. Thanks.
Certainly, Stacey. Thank you very much. And real quickly, let me just add that I want to thank you guys for the plug with my aunt. She just went into hospice.
Oh.
And she's 86 years old. And she was everything to me growing up. She would keep me after school and make me write on the chalkboard. I thought she was punishing me. I wanted to go home. But, you know, I just asked for continued prayers and the hopes that, you know, she's at peace anyway. But thanks again for that plug.
Thank you, Andre, the great Andre Dawson. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And play baseball, everybody. Play baseball. Good night, good day, and stay safe and stay well.